We're going to take a look at the gutters and the gutter guards this morning to see how everything is performing at this point. It is Friday, August 14th, 2020. I am back up on the south side of the garage. We're going to take a look at the gutters and the gutter guards this morning to see how everything is performing at this point. So stay tuned and I will show you what's going on. Here is the LeafLock on the south side of the garage. What I've noticed here, and really with most of these systems, is that if you recall from previous videos, the debris was still sitting up on top of the roof shingles. So at one point, all the gutter guards were completely covered over, and the first half of the shingle or so was full of debris, mostly from the locust tree, but other things, pine needles, oak tassels, and what have you. So now that we are the middle of August, we are finally starting to see all this debris break away. So this is the LeafLock system. You can see the amount of debris that still sits on top of it. There's a clump of material that's still making its way off the roof here in the middle, but the gutter screen itself is pretty open and available to take in the water at this point. So from the last time I was up here, this one has made a big difference, the amount of debris that's sitting on top of it. Now, one of the other things that I had commented on in a previous video was I was curious how these little flecks of debris would be handled, whether they would get permanently stuck to the gutter screen or if they would eventually blow away. And I think what you can see is they are washing or blowing away. So they're not necessarily plastered inside the screen as I had wondered out loud on the video. So it looks like with a little bit more time, the debris that is currently remaining on top of the LeafLock system will in fact wash or blow off the top of the screen. So as I step down to the face of the gutter, you can see the debris that is still kind of clinging on there. So most of that's been driven over by the water, and then it just dries on top of, on the face of the gutter. So this system overall would be probably number 3 in terms of its effectiveness, on at least on the micro mesh gutter guards, and might be 3 overall. On this side of the garage, we do have the LeaFree solid gutter cover as well. But in terms of the micro mesh systems, it looks like it's probably doing the 3rd best job with the debris on the face of the gutter itself. So again, this is LeafLock on the south side of the garage. This is Valor's diamond micro mesh screen. It has an actual diamond pattern that is embossed into the screen itself. This system, at this point in the test on August 14th, 2020, has the most debris sitting on top of it. So you can see we're looking at the left-hand side of the screen here. Really until about the middle of the screen, it's mostly covered up with debris. And then as you come over to the right-hand side, it's somewhat free and mostly free of debris on the far right side. So pretty much about a third of the way over from the right, all the way over here to the left, it's got an increasing amount of debris just sitting on top of it. So some of this debris may be what was up here on the roof. It's just kind of shifted forward, and at this point it hasn't had a chance to vacate the top of the gutter guard's surface. So again, mid-August, this debris, initially the locust debris, came down at the end of May. So we're now talking about 2.5 months that debris has been sitting up here. And as you recall from previous videos, this one had fared the worst. It had been covered up in a way that it really hadn't exposed itself up until now. So again, as we kind of come over to the right, you're going to see that diamond pattern screen where most of the debris has vacated the surface. But as we come back over to the left, you're going to see an increasing amount of debris sitting on top of it. As we step down to the face of the gutter, this is also the one on the south side of the garage that has fared the worst. It has the most debris clinging to the face of the gutter. So that's indicative of the fact that the debris has worked its way off the top with the rainwater. It draws it around, it clings to the front of the gutter, and then it just holds it in place there as it dries. Here we're looking at LeaFree on the south side of the garage. At this point in the test, all the debris has worked its way off the roof. This one has always done a pretty good job with the debris that actually sits on top of the gutter cover because it's a smooth metal. It's a solid metal, solid aluminum. There's really not a whole lot of friction for the debris to hang out on the top side of it, but there was still debris sitting up on the roof level. And you can actually see some discoloration in the shingles kind of up in this area where that stuff has just been hanging out all spring. Well, really since the end of May, so late spring. Now, where this game changes a little bit, while it's done an effective job with the debris on top of the gutter guard surface, we see signs of more and more of that debris on the inside of the channel or the opening into the gutter below. So this has always been the real death knell of this type of gutter guard system, the solid gutter cover, is this opening channel that draws the water into the gutter itself is also a way for the debris to get drawn inside the gutter or into the channel itself. And once it gets into that channel, it could potentially block the water from entering into the gutter itself. So we have more of that debris over here to the left side. You can see it just kind of hanging on there. As we come over here, looks like there's a pine needle. You know, there's just stuff kind of dangling off the edge. Come over here as far as I can reach to the right, and you'll see how that stuff is just kind of hanging out in that opening there. So the top of the cover is doing fine. The opening, if we weren't to touch it, which we're not going to touch it, we'll need some attention at some point. And that's really the drawback of this type of system. If you're in an area with a lot of trees, leaves, debris, what have you, it's more likely that you're going to encounter something similar to this situation. And as you can see here, there are absolutely no trees overhanging the garage, but there are plenty of trees kind of around the perimeter line that allowed that debris to land on the roof and then work its way inside the gutter. If we look at the face of the gutter, it's fared pretty well overall. We've got some debris that's clinging to the front of it, but overall it has done a nice job keeping most of that debris off the face of the gutter. So if I were to look at this, obviously this is a test of one in terms of the solid gutter covers at this point, so it's hard to compare it to like kind systems, but in terms of the micro mesh systems on the house or on the garage here, I would say this one is doing probably number 3 overall. So it's done a reasonable job of deflecting or allowing, preventing the debris to land on the face of the gutter here. Here we're looking at the Gutter Glove Pro Micro Mesh Gutter Guard on the south side of the garage, Friday, August 14th, 2020. You can see that there's still a fair bit of debris sitting on top of the gutter guard. We have a little bit of the pine needles and the locust flowers that have dried up, landed on here at the end of May, and you can see some other leaves and what have you on this. So there are spots where the debris has lifted off the screen itself, but as you kind of pan across the entire screen, it's still somewhat covered up. So I'm actually probably the most surprised by this one, because this is a system that actually slides up under the first course of shingles, as you can see here. So it has a pretty decent slope to it. If you look at that in kind of relationship to the edge of the gutter below it, you'll see it has a pretty decent slope up under the shingles. Yet the debris has continued to hang out on here in a way that I just would not have expected. So I step down and look at the face. We also have a fair bit of debris clinging to the front. So it's pretty clean over here to the right. As we work our way more to the middle and then to the left, you'll see quite a bit of debris that is clinging and has dried on the front face of the gutter. So this occurs when the debris works its way off the top. It's raining outside. Enough of that debris dislodges from the top surface of the gutter guard. It then works its way down with the water and clings to the face of the gutter. So in terms of the micro mesh gutter guards, this one is performing probably number 4 on the list. So this one would be number 4 on the list. So this is Gutter Glove Pro on the south side. This is LeafFilter on the south side of the garage, Friday, August 14th, 2020. You can see the amount of exposed screen and the amount of debris that is still sitting on top of this gutter guard. So overall, the screen is pretty open. We've got a clump of material here still hanging out. We've got some screen opening here. And then as you come over to the left, you'll see a little bit more of the debris. Looks like we were visited by a bird. So that contributed his droppings to this particular system in a few places, it appears. So the screen is reasonably open, but there is still a fair bit of debris, not only sitting at the screen level, but also, I think more problematically, at the rear of the screen. So because this one sits relatively flat, you can see the roof line above it. The debris just kind of drops. It kerplunks down on top of this screen. If we have enough of a breeze and it's dry enough, obviously some of that debris will work its way off the top of the cover, but some of it just hangs out here. So because it's sitting up underneath the roof shingle, it's somewhat protected. So that overhang of the roof shingle is allowing some of that debris, because maybe the wind can't get to it as readily, just to hang out back behind it. And it'll be interesting to see how much of that stuff hangs on. So when the rest of the debris has vacated, if it does vacate, I can't even guarantee that it's going to vacate, but if it does eventually work its way off the top of the screen, how much of that debris will be hanging out on the backside of the gutter. So time will tell, but here in mid-August of 2020, this is what you've got. A lot of this debris came down at the end of May, so about 2.5 months ago, and it is finally moving its way off the surface after about 10 weeks. If we come down to the face of the gutter, you can see the debris that has clung to the front. Here you see kind of a water line where the water has worked its way off the top, kind of dirty water, if you will. So the water discolors with the pigment of the leaves and debris. It works its way down the face of the gutter and then to the underside where it drips off. So that's a great example there of what can happen. And this is true of most gutter guards. So this is not unique to LeafFilter by any sense, but that gives you kind of a good line to follow. You see the debris on the top side. You see how that water streak comes down the face of the gutter, and then it comes to the bottom of the gutter where it drips off and discolors everything along the way. So the debris that we have over here is actually more than I would have anticipated, because this system does have a little built-in drip edge, but it hugs pretty tight to the face of the gutter. So there's not a huge gap between where this drip edge is and where the edge of the gutter is, and therefore you're seeing more debris that's clinging to the face of the gutter as you go across here. So kind of comparing this to the other systems that are up here, this one is doing the second best job in terms of the debris that's sitting on the face of the gutter. This is Master Shield on the south side of the garage on Friday, August 14, 2020. The screen itself is pretty much free and clear. You can see a few random pine needles that continue to fall off the tree. Anybody that has these long needle pines, these white pine type trees, knows that those needles will fall 365 days a year. So I would expect nothing but kind of this continuation throughout the course of the year. Here you can actually see a green set of needles that just fell off the tree. Those will eventually brown up, like the other ones that you see sitting at the roof level, and then they just kind of work their way down on the screen, and then they roll off the top. So here's a good example where you've got some of the brand new needles that have fallen off the tree. They're just kind of hanging out on the roof. They'll eventually work their way across the screen, and then they'll drop to the ground below. But other than a little bit of bird poop there in the middle, this screen has really done a great job in terms of keeping the leaves and debris off. If you recall from earlier videos, there was an instance where we had some stuff kind of sitting in this bottom right corner. It was just hanging out there. But by and large, the screen was pretty open and available. There were also some instances where between the screen, so here at the screen and then where the metal begins, you had a situation where stuff would kind of hang out in between those areas, because there's a series of weep holes that goes down the very front of that metal, and then between the screen and the metal itself where it made that transition, you would get some stuff that would hang out there a little bit. But from the last video I was up here, if I recall, we did have a little bit of stuff, some pine needles mostly, just kind of hanging out in that bridge between the screen surface and the metal. And as you can see, that has all worked its way off the screen itself. If we come down to the face of the gutter, this has been the strongest performer of the lot. You can see, one little flower bud there, probably off the locust tree, but by and large, this thing is pretty well untouched, and it has remained that way all throughout the testing. So most of that debris came off the locust tree at the end of May, and this one has done a fantastic job of keeping everything off the face of the gutter. I am now on the north side of the garage. Stay tuned and I'll show you what's going on. We are now looking at Master Shield on the north side of the garage, Friday, August 14th, 2020. As I pan across from left to right, you can see that the screen is free of leaves and debris. Obviously, we have, kind of the everyday random droppings of pine needles, little remnants, whatever you would get off the tree continues to fall. As you look above, you can see the pine needles on the roof itself. So they just work their way down the roof and onto the screen surface here. But the screen itself is free and clear. Now, if there was a trouble spot on this side, it was over here to the left. And as you can see where we put the end cap on this system, the screen itself was pressed down a little bit. And so that has tended to be a spot where debris has congregated And if I recall from the earliest videos that I shot, once we started to see the debris really fall off the trees, it was over here on this left side where we had the most debris just sitting up on the gutter guard. So I think I had said it on a previous video that roughly 90%, 80% to 90% of the screen was available. It looked more like what we're seeing now, but as we came to this left side, we had a little bit more debris. So you can see a little bit of stuff is kind of wedged up under that end cap, but by and large, all that stuff has worked its way off the screen itself to the ground below. As we step down to the face of the gutter, you can see what's here. So we're seeing a little bit of debris that's worked its way around the edge off the drip lip or the drip edge onto the face of the gutter. At the top, if you look kind of through the midsection and the lower portion of the face of the gutter, it's all very clean. So this system overall has done a very good job here on the north side of the gutter. And then in terms of water drippage off the bottom, if I just kind of scan across there, it also looks very clean. So in other videos, you'll actually see kind of where the dried water droplets were, where the discoloration from the debris had followed its way down with the water, and then it had dripped off the base of the gutter. So Master Shield has done a very good job here on the north side of the gutter. This is LeafFilter on the north side of the garage, Friday, August 14th, 2020. Not a huge change from the last time I was up here. You can see a little bit of the screen opening here at the far right of the panel, but then it starts to get covered back up. I think we have seen some movement. If I recall, the last time I shot a video, it seemed like we had more debris, so it certainly seems to be thinning out, but still a fair bit of debris sitting on top of this. And in addition to the locust flowers, you can see other little leaves, locust leaves themselves, but a fair number of pine needles that have just come off the roof and landed on top of the screen and are just hanging out at this point. So here in mid-August, we are still looking at a gutter cover that has a fair bit of debris sitting on top of it. And then if we step down to the face of the gutter, it's done a pretty good job here. You see kind of a random pine needle. It's just dangling from the edge. Some of the locust flowers, a few more pine needles, and most of those pine needles are hanging from little spider webs there. So this one has also done a very good job on the north side of the gutter, and I would say that it's probably number 2, but just slightly behind where the Master Shield has performed. If we look at the underside of the gutter, also very clean. So again, like Master Shield, it has done an effective job of pushing the water and the debris away from the face of the gutter. We're looking at Leaf Solution on the north side of the garage, Friday, August 14th, 2020. This particular product slides up under the first course of shingles, so you can see the angle at which it is installed up under the shingles versus where the edge of the gutter is, and then compare that to LeafFilter that's right next to it. So it has a nice forward slope on it. This particular product has 3 downward dips or 3 channels, and that screen is kind of woven around that expanded aluminum framework behind it. So those channels, as you can see, do collect some of the debris that comes across the face of the gutter screen. But this one's doing a pretty good job. You know, a lot's changed over the last week or so since I've been up here, and you can see how a lot of that debris has dried up that had previously sat on top of it. It's worked its way off the top of the gutter guard to to the ground below. So that's exactly what you want from a gutter guard, but there is still a fair bit of debris sitting on top of this system. And this one, in terms of how it installs, would be comparable on this side to all the systems with the exception of LeafFilter. So all these systems that are over here on the north side, every one of them with the exception of LeafFilter, actually installs up under the first course of shingles. So what you would want, what you would hope, is that the debris would more quickly vacate off the surface of the gutter guard because gravity and that angle is helping pull it down to the ground below. If we come to the face of the gutter, Leaf Solution has not done a very good job. You can see the amount of debris that's sitting on the face of the gutter here, and it's pretty consistent from right to left all the way across it. So the Leaf Solution system is a premium product at a premium price, but it's not really doing that good of a job on the face of the gutter. So a lot of that debris has been drawn from the top of the gutter guard surface. It's followed the path of the water around it, and it has stuck to the face of the gutter. So essentially what that's telling you is you're more likely to see water coming over the top of the surface. So while some of it's being naturally drawn into the gutter itself, some of that water is working its way across down the face of the gutter, and then that's where you get this debris that collects there, and then it eventually dries if it just doesn't wash away. Here we're looking at LeafLock on the north side of the garage on Friday, August 14th, 2020. You can see a lot of the debris has moved its way off the surface of the gutter guard from the last time I was up here. We do have some debris that's hanging up between the gutter guard surface and the edge of the shingles itself. So as that stuff works its way down the pitch of the roof, the steep pitch of the roof, it will land on top of the gutter guard with the idea, because it's up under the first course of shingles, that you want it to slide off and go to the ground below. But at this point, some of that debris is just hanging out kind of at the transition point between the gutter guard surface and the shingles itself. There is a bit of moss sitting there. I think that's a bit of moss that has rolled off the roof itself versus something that's actually growing on top of the screen. So while it looks like it could be potentially growing on the screen, it appears to me that it's actually just dead moss, but we'll keep an eye on that and see how it performs throughout the rest of the year. If it stays there, if it gets washed off, you can see a leaf here on the roof level kind of working its way down. So even though we have a steep pitched roof, there's a dove sitting up there watching me. You can see some of the moss up on the roof level, but you can see the pitch of that roof, how that stuff just works its way down and then onto and hopefully off the gutter screen. So like the south side of the garage, I had wondered kind of how this debris would do, these kind of little specks of debris, if they would cling to the screen itself or whether they would dry up and eventually roll off the top of the surface. And my belief at this point, because you can see along the leading edge here, just these little pieces of debris, they're just essentially the remnants of what was up there originally, are kind of working their way towards the front edge of the gutter guard. There's really not much of a transition between the screen and the metal, but there is a little bit of a ridge there. So you have some of that stuff that's hanging out at the front edge, and then it will hopefully wash or blow itself off the screen. As you come over to the left, you can see a little bit more debris here than there are in other spots. And then if we drop down to the face of the gutter, you can see a reasonable amount of debris here. So I will rate how each of these systems is doing from a debris perspective on the face of the gutter, like I did in the previous video. I don't suspect much has changed from the last time I looked at it, but I'll run you through that. But here what you're seeing, again, like the other systems that have debris on the face of the gutter, that's indicative of water that is being carried off the gutter guard surface. It brings that debris around with the water, and then it kind of lands on and clings to the face of the gutter. So here's a good example of some debris that's kind of working its way off the surface, and it just doesn't have the momentum to fall to the ground at this point. But I suspect the next time I come up that will no longer be there because it had fallen to the ground. We are looking at Gutter Gloves DIY Easy On Micro Mesh Gutter Guard. It's known by several names, available at Costco, Home Depot, Lowe's, etc. This one has moved a lot of the debris off the gutter guard surface. So you can see the majority of the screen is now available to take in the water. I would say, if anything, and here's maybe a good example, where it's clean here, it's shifted all that debris forward to this lower section here. So this is a good example of what you might see where the debris has not yet moved off the main part of the screen. It works its way from the roof onto the screen, and then it shifts its way forward. So eventually what you're going to get is free and available screen here, a little bit of debris down here. So why is there a bunch of debris right at the leading edge of this screen, or the bottom edge of this screen? So on this particular product, there's a transition point. So the screen sits relatively flat, and then as it comes down, it actually turns up and creates a little hump at the front edge of the screen itself. So the transition between the metal and the screen is this little upward rise. So what you're seeing is the debris works its way forward, and then essentially it's getting stuck on that front edge of the screen where it transitions from being relatively flat to having a little bit of a hump in it. That little stair step is there to help drive the water down into the gutter itself. So the water moves its way across the screen, hits that little bump, if you will, or the base of that little bump, and then it's supposed to drive the water into the gutter from there. So this transition creates obviously a little area where the debris itself can hold. What we need to see is over time, is that debris going to get pushed away from that little transition piece, from that little stair step. And that stair step is something that you commonly see on a different class of system, some of the perforated aluminum gutter guards, but it's not necessarily something that you see on the micro mesh systems. So they do incorporate that transition, that little stair step, into their class of product for gutter glove. If we come around to the face of the gutter, you can just see how much debris has landed on the face of the gutter. And there's quite a bit, really, for a micro mesh system. This one is among the worst that we have seen. And what that tells me is that enough water has transitioned off the screen surface itself, come over the top, and then it's allowed that debris to cling to the face of the gutter. If we take another step down, you look to the underside here, you can see kind of where it's darkened, where it's gotten dirty, and where water has ultimately dripped from the base of the screen, or from the base of the gutter. So that's one of the issues with this product is while it is a micro mesh system, while it is an affordable DIY product, if you want to do it as a DIY, they also have a professionally installed version of the system that's virtually identical. There is a situation where you're going to see more water transitioning off the screen, coming along the face of the gutter, and then dripping from the bottom. Here we're looking at the clean mesh, micro mesh gutter guard system. This is on the north side of the garage on Friday, August 14th, 2020. This one has done a good job with the debris. You can see here we still have a clump of debris off to the right, but by and large the screen is pretty open and clear all the way back over to the left. So again, you've got some debris that's just kind of working its way off the roof. Little piece of moss that's come off the roof, landed on top of the screen. I got a few places where you have some moss, and then just kind of remnants of the debris that's been sitting up here. So I have described this one. To me, this always looked like an atlas or a world globe, where you had different countries or different continents that were kind of among the, they were the clumps of the debris, and then you had the ocean here in the middle, that's the open screen, and then you had another continent, and then open screen, and so on and so forth all the way across. So many of those continents have fallen off the face of the earth in this case, and are no longer in existence. Okay, now I'm going to look at the front of the face of the gutters on the north side of the garage, and we'll just start from left to right, but we'll just pan down here for the moment. So as I come back to the left, that is the clean mesh, micro mesh gutter guard system. You can see the amount of debris that's on the face of the gutter itself. Ranking the face of the gutter guards, or the gutters on the north side of the garage. So number 1 is Master Shield. Number 2 is LeafFilter. Number 3 is LeafLock. Number 4 is Clean Mesh. Number 5 is Leaf Solution. And then the worst, number 6, is the Easy On by Gutter Glove. It's number 6 on the north side of the garage. I am on the south side of the garage on August 14th, 2020. I am going to rank the amount of debris that's on the face of the gutter systems 1 to 6. 1 being the best, number 6 being the worst. In this particular case, on this side of the garage, we do have right up here, the LeaFree solid gutter cover. So the other 5 systems are micro mesh, and that's the only solid gutter cover over here. So I will rank it just based on the total performance of the systems, regardless of their type. Number 1 is Master Shield. Number 2, come all the way down here, is LeaFree. Doing a pretty good job. Number 3 is LeafFilter. Number 4 is LeafLock. Number 5 is Gutter Glove Pro. And number 6 is the Diamond Mesh Screen. If we were to take the solid gutter cover out of contention, which we can't really do, but if we were to take it out of contention, then we would just shift. Number 1 would be Master Shield. Number 2, LeafFilter right here. Number 3, LeafLock. Number 4, Gutter Glove Pro. And number 5 would be the diamond pattern screen. I'm going to take a look at the gutter guards for the final time in August of 2020, just so we've got a reference point here.